Hello, welcome to another retro RHLSTP, available for the first time in full on YouTube, but also being repeated as a podcast if you prefer the audio. You can watch, you can listen, do whatever you like. If you want to support us, and I hope you will, because we need all the support we can get to keep this bloody thing going, then become a badger at gofasterstripe.com/badges and get lots of extras, all sorts of malarkey, including bonus podcasts and ad-free podcasts and all sorts of things. Gofasterstripe.com/badges, or just come and see us live. If you're up in Edinburgh, we're at the Stand 3 at 2 o'clock from the 30th of July to the 10th of August. richardherring.com/RHLSTP for guest news and ticket links. Would love to see you there. Anyway, what a fantastic guest, Ardal O'Hanlon. Really great to get him on. One of my absolute favourite comedians. Very nice man. So sit back, relax and enjoy this little monkey fiddler talking to Ardal O'Hanlon. I must stop fiddling with monkeys. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Leicester Square Theatre. Please welcome a man you may have seen in the Daily Express. It's Richard Herring. Oh, thank you very much. Oh, love to see you all. Thank you for coming. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Richard Herring's Leicester Square Theatre podcast. I was talking to Hoss from Bonanza the other day. Thought I'd put something for the old guy. Remember that? Remember the Bonanza, Dave? That's fun. Thought I'd do something for the older people. Remember Hoss from Bonanza? Yeah. He calls it RHLSTP. I would do if he hadn't died in 1972. So it's the curse of Bonanza. I was in the Daily Express. This was the week of recording. It was my face next to just a giant image of a man just holding his balls like that. So all my dreams come true. That's what I just always hoped. That's the paper my grandma and granddad used to get. They would never have dreamt one day my smiling face and going. I mean, I thought there might be a story like that eventually, but it wasn't. It wasn't what happened. It wasn't what happened before. Okay, and just like our final Kickstarter mention is this is a backer, paid a lot of money for this. It's from Crispin, who says, "We will now observe a minute's silence to get maximum impact for my money." I'm prepared to give it a go. I haven't set the timer. Let me wait. We haven't started yet. I can't even work out how to do the timer. There's a clock there. No? Okay, fuck it. I can't work out how to set a time. Let's try. I'll do it for a bit. See how long it is before it gets awkward. Yeah, come on. Have some respect for Crispin, guys. Everyone's got to be quiet or it's not going to work. Yeah, it's not going to work. So if you do that on the radio, if you leave enough of a gap on the radio, then the emergency broadcasting kicks in. I'm not sure. So I don't want that to happen. Don't want you end up getting off menu or something by mistake coming in. So thank you, Crispin. It didn't work. I was in Starbucks in Hitchin this week. That's how I live. And I was disappointed in Starbucks in Hitchin. I went to the toilet, and the toilet, it's a unisex toilet. Anyone can go in there. It's all fine. But they have the crescent-shaped toilet seat in there. Do you know what I mean by that? It's where there's a little bit cut out near this end so that if someone with a penis wants to urinate without lifting the seat, the idea is they can urinate through that little gap. You don't see them very often anymore because they don't work. It relies on accuracy and but only those with a penis. Anyone who knows who has a penis will know that they overestimate their ability to shoot straight as it is. And having one of those, it encourages people to try. That's what I would say. And we shouldn't be encouraging. What they should be doing is encouraging men to either lift the seat or sit down when you urinate. If you're our age, right, David? Sit down when you urinate. Because it'll go everywhere. So I just want to say to Starbucks in Hitchin, sort yourself out. I'm just using my powers to do that. Is that all I've got? That might be all I've got. Right, so let's crack. That literally it. I suppose it would have been a minute longer if I'd had a timer for my phone. All right, my guest this week. Look, we've had a lot of people, a lot of the stars from Robbie the Reindeer, Close Encounters of the Third kind on this show. A lot. But we have never had Robbie the Reindeer. And this week we've got him. He's best known for that. He was also, of course, the gentleman from East Chiswick in Mole Flanders. That's why we're here. That's why we're here. Will you please welcome the amazing Ardal O'Hanlon, ladies and gentlemen? That's Ardal O'Hanlon. Robbie the Reindeer. He's literally Robbie the Reindeer.
Hello.
Sit down. Robbie the Reindeer. Robbie the Reindeer. How did you feel when you got the Robbie the Reindeer gig? Do you remember the call coming through?
I realised I had arrived. And what a cast. I don't know if you remember. I mean, I don't remember myself, but...
I just know I've picked it a lot of times. Just basically everyone who's anyone has been Robbie the Reindeer.
Yeah.
And that's the third one, Close Encounters of the Herd.
Yeah.
Herd
no,
kind.
I was in the first.
You're in all of them.
Oh, yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Thank you.
There was a very successful franchise.
Yeah.
What about Mole Flanders?
Could you remind me of everything else that I've done in my career?
That's 3 films of Robbie
Mole Flanders was actually one of the most embarrassing things I've ever done in my life. Mole Flanders, the book, the Daniel Defoe novel, and there was a movie version made of that. It was ill-fated. I don't even know if it was ever released.
Okay.
But Robin Wright played the main character, and she was great. And Morgan Freeman, Morgan Freeman, he played her assistant, her trusty assistant, her kind of gatekeeper, for any rowdy behaviour by the clients would be turfed out. So I played a client. So I was in it for all of 10 seconds. So I basically throw a coin disdainfully on the bed at the end of the encounter.
Okay.
And it was the first time I was ever in a movie of any sort. Mm-hmm. And the director kept saying to me, "Find the light." And I didn't know the terminology at the time, to find the light, which means stand in the light. And I didn't know what he was saying. And so I kept saying, "Stand here? Where? What does he mean? Find the light." And eventually Morgan Freeman, who was in the scene, said, "Find the fucking light." So I was scolded by Morgan Freeman.
Wow.
Which I guess is a claim to fame of sorts.
It is, it's pretty good. Did you work along to get the accent right to be from East Chiswick, or did you work on the...
I didn't have any lines.
Didn't have any lines.
It was just a toss of a coin.
Why were you called the gentleman from East Chiswick? It's a very long...
Mole Flanders was a high class courtesan, is that the word?
Yeah.
And her clientele were all gentlemen.
Okay. It's just so specific. Chiswick isn't even that big.
Yeah.
Just Chiswick would do, right?
Oh.
East Chiswick.
Yeah. I mean, I had bandy legs. I think that's what.
Well, it's lovely to see you, and to get you on. We've had you on the Edinburgh version of this, but you've never done the London version, and so it's fantastic to have you here. There's so much to talk to you about. I've been enjoying you on Taskmaster.
Yes.
How have you found the... I mean, we can't talk about it too much because only 2 episodes have been out. We don't want to give away any secrets. But I was the champion of my series, so... And I'm guessing from the first 2 episodes that you're not the champion of your series, so that's my call.
Richard, it's surely it's too early to say.
It is too early to say.
Have you ever seen Cool Runnings?
How did you find it? Did you enjoy the experience? It's a pretty amazing experience.
It's a truly amazing once-in-a-lifetime experience.
Yeah.
And it's the kind of thing that I would have shied away from traditionally over the years. I just didn't think I'd be any good. Okay. And I was right. But I didn't think I'd enjoy it. I'm kind of shy about being myself and things, actually. But I was trapped in Dublin for well over a year during the various lockdowns. And I absolutely jumped at it. It was my first time getting away from Dublin in well over a year. And we filmed it last summer in London. We did all the tasks. And it's the kind of thing, like, I would pay to do, frankly.
Yeah.
It's just, it just brings out the inner child, and you're just, and like, I'm a little bit uptight normally, and as a stand-up, you're very much in control, and as a writer, you're in control, and as an actor, you're in control to a large extent. But here, there is no safety net. No. So for me, for someone like me, it's actually really liberating. And I don't know if that was just a kind of a consequence of being in lockdown for so long, but it was pure freedom. It was like, honestly, it was the most joyful working experience I think I've ever had.
Yeah, it really is. It's a fantastic team that work on it, I think. So when you're treated incredibly well, I think they know what they're doing. All the behind the scenes people are just so fantastic, I think, in it as well. But obviously Alex and Greg as well are terrific.
And it's just lovely to watch them in action as well. And the people I'm with are just amazing, and they're great fun. And from the first moment we met, and of course you don't really meet till you get into the studio. I think we just clicked, and it's very hard to fake like a competitiveness with people that you're getting on really well with.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
But did you? Because that's how it started for us, and then it got quite competitive.
Yeah,
I mean, if I'm in the middle of it, it's going to be competitive.
Yeah.
Daisy May Cooper was very competitive and quite scary. And we haven't stayed being friends, I wouldn't say. Everyone else who'd done Taskmaster said, yeah, we're on a WhatsApp group, we hang out and do... No. Not me, anyway. Maybe the rest get together. Yeah. And I was looking at your early career, and I spotted that you won the Hackney Empire New Act of the Year award in 1994. Do you remember? Do you remember that? You co-won it with an act called Wara.
Wara, yeah.
Do you remember?
Do
you know what happened to Wara?
I don't know. He had some really nice material though, but he didn't. I don't think he was still doing it within a year or two.
I remember him go to Edinburgh, and then that's the.
Yeah.
He sort of was a bit of a splash in Edinburgh.
Then,
and
I think Ricky Grover was in that competition,
really?
who was brilliant.
Yeah.
One of my favourite comics, East End comic.
Yeah, he's fabulous.
Yeah.
It's an interesting competition. In the year that Daniel Kitson did it, it was won by a guy called Anton. He won, Daniel Kitson came second, and Paul Sinha came third.
Wow.
Don't know what happened to Anton. I think you'd retire, wouldn't you, if you beat Daniel Kitson and then you acted the year.
Yeah, well, exactly. For some people, that is the pinnacle of their career. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you were pretty successful. I mean, you came to London in about 1994, didn't you? So was it the year you came? And it was pretty much success straight away. You won that competition.
Yeah, not really. No, I mean, no, I'd done a few things in Ireland, like Moll Flanders and a few little things like that. I mean, the very last thing I did in Ireland before I left was actually crime reconstruction. So there was a show in Ireland on RTE, the national channel, called Crime Line, and so I was asked to play a sort of a small-time drug dealer who gets shot in the back of the legs, and so I turned up, and I was dressed completely inappropriately for the job. I had this kind of blouse on me, I looked ridiculous. I remember distinctly a wine-coloured sort of collarless shirt, billowing in the breeze, just ridiculous. And so the idea was that two lads jumped out of a van and shot me in the back of the legs, and I went rah! And the director actually took me aside, and he said, that's a bit over the top. I was absolutely gutted. I thought he was coming over to tell me, good job, like very realistic, very naturalistic, good man. Keep it up. But no, it was like, how could that be over the top?
What is he? How does he know what it's like if you're shot in the back of the legs? That's probably what you go. Rah! I'd definitely go. Rah!
Yeah,
that happened to me. Definitely.
But I just knew I had to get out of there. Like that was really the only work available in Dublin at the time. So to come over to London, 1994, do stand up, and stand up was really hopping at that time.
Yeah.
Really, really taken off in a big way. And the kind of people who were on the circuit was Lee Evans and Eddie Izzard, Jack D, and you'd be on the same bill as these guys, and it was really exciting. And then you were kind of funneled towards these competitions like the Hackney Empire competition, and there was another one, the Ha Bloody Ha,
Yes.
Spitting Image, New Act of the Year
Right.
as well, which I won. Beat that, Taskmaster.
Did you get a big version of someone's head as a result? No, you didn't.
No, I got a photocopied piece of paper. Yeah.
But you were. So what was your stand-up that you were doing? Was because you obviously got picked up for Father Ted pretty quickly from that year. Were you doing? Was the persona on stage? Was it like Father Dougal, or was it? Yeah.
I was wondering how long it would take you to get to Father Dougal. But,
Yeah. I'm going to talk about it briefly
for
the next half an hour.
No.
I want to get onto Death in Paradise, mate. I'm going to rush through this.
I suppose it was a bit Dougalish. My stand-up persona at the time was kind of like very, kind of bewildered, kind of saying, I hope, like kind of astute things about the world and human behavior, but like, I suppose playing a kind of a very blank-faced, sort of wide-eyed, maybe kind of persona or something. Kind of hiding behind that persona, frankly, because like I was terrified of being on stage and, kind of shy as well. So to have that kind of armory, even a persona. I mean, that helps.
I've read about you that you hate show-offs, but you love showing off. That is sort of part of the ethos behind you, because you are quite a shy person in real life. But so what attracted you to doing stand-up? Which I can understand because I'm the same. But what attracted you to do comedy in front of?
I don't know. It was kind of like maybe an overreaction to that. You know, being quite shy and sort of always wanting to say things or express yourself or comment on something, but just holding back all the time. And then you get to a certain age where it just all bursts out of you. It kind of just comes out in a big splurge then. And I think for me that was going to university and debating and just putting myself out there and if it didn't work, I wouldn't do it. But it was working, so I just kept doing it.
Yeah. And do you feel, in a way, because I know, I know you're a stand-up at heart and you've carried on doing stand-up and you're still doing stand-up. Was the Father Ted gig as amazing as it was it a bit of a sort of albatross around your neck in terms of when you were going back on stage? Were people expecting?
Well, only in a tiny way, I would say. I suppose I just wasn't really ready, like, to be catapulted into the kind of theatre touring environment. I was comfortable in the clubs, and I had my 20 minutes. Half an hour at a push, and suddenly, after Father Ted goes out in Channel 4 and it's popular, and people think, oh, you need to think about a tour, and so. I think I just was rushed into that a little bit. Yeah. And then there's the expectation factor where people, I suppose, they only know you as this character in Father Ted. So perhaps some of them were coming along expecting to see some variation of that. Now, I looked like him and I sounded a bit like him, but that's kind of where the comparison ended. I think my material was kind of different. I mean, it was, it's still coming from a similar area, like slightly surreal and, I suppose, reason, gentle enough in its own way, but
I mean, 90 minutes of Father Dougal on his own probably would be too
work.
much.
I mean, Dougal needs the other characters, around him as well. And there was often talk about doing a TED touring show, which I think we all just didn't want anything to do with that, really.
Yeah.
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 I mean, like what I was doing at the time was like your bog standard contemporary London comedy, So I just think it was just a bit different than what people might have been expecting. But to be honest with you, like another way of answering your question is no, it didn't bother me at all.
I like to have two different answers. We'll just choose which one, the best one to put out.
Yeah.
Well, it's not, but it's often the way that you see someone discovered it very quickly. And it's not always the best thing for them in terms of like being a stand-up necessarily. If you exactly what you're saying, if you go from doing 20 minutes to suddenly being a household name, it's kind of hard then to make that leap forward. If you'd had another 5 years to do the circuit and really nail down what you were doing. Yeah. But that's not how it works. Is it? I think you
take your opportunities when they come along. I can't tell you that doing my crime reconstructions in Ireland, doing one gig maybe every 2 months, like I didn't leave Ireland till I was 28.
Right.
So I did a lot of arsing around, you know. So I was
Yeah.
quite ready for whatever London was going to throw at me. The other big job I did in my last week in Ireland in 1994 was I got a job flogging cognac in suburban pubs.
Right.
So I had to dress up as a butler, possibly from East Chiswick. They gave me this big spiel to learn off about the history of the product. It was Hennessy cognac, you know, which had an Irish connection back in the mists of time. And to go out there to pubs and like do this big spiel for people and give them a sample of cognac. And the really lucky ones got one of those lovely cognac glasses.
Oh, nice.
But of course, like within minutes, people were just going, just pour the fucking brandy. And so that was the kind of thing you had to do to get by in Dublin, you know, as a comic. So
because there wasn't like a big comedy scene, right? There was very few clubs.
There was maybe 2 or 3 clubs.
Yeah. So there's other jobs. According to I think IMDb, so this might not be true. Did you work as a pig farmer?
Well, I was surrounded by pig farms growing up,
Okay.
and I did spend a lot of time with the pigs.
Okay. It says you worked in a Norfolk pea canning factory.
Absolutely true.
Okay.
King's Lynn. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah. She was there.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just after I did my leaving certificate, which is like your A levels. I just packed, just came over to England for the summer, because there was this kind of work to be had.
Yeah.
In Norfolk. So why Norfolk? I really don't know. But funny, Bob Geldof actually worked in the same canning factory about 15 years earlier.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot of alumni of the pea canning factory. Yeah. Was there something in the peas that?
Yeah, something there.
Any funny stories about canning peas?
Oh no.
Did the machine ever go wrong and peas went everywhere?
No. I lived in a tent for the summer.
Right.
That's true. And lived on samphire, which was a local delicacy. Which
no pea. You didn't eat.
No
Did you get
food,
free
just
peas?
Samphire. No pea. No. I got the cans, but I didn't have an opener.
Is it like working in a chocolate factory that, the first few days you're just digging and eating the peas?
Yeah.
And you think, I've had enough peas. I'm sick of eating peas now. You worked as a check-in clerk for Aer Lingus. Mm-hmm. How was that?
Well, it was as you'd expect. I mean,
I don't know. I've never been a check-in clerk.
Well, it wasn't a bad job. Right. I mean, it was a very good job by the standards of the day. Like it was a reasonably well rewarded job. And I remember in those days, you didn't check in online, obviously, so you met everyone who was getting on the plane. So you could do good stuff. Like, for example, if you met a really nice, let's say, man who was very friendly, and I would take a note of his seat number, and if a very nice lady, perhaps, came along later on, I would make sure she was sitting beside him, and so on.
Yeah.
And likewise, if I met a... Honestly, this is how you'd pass the day. Like, it was boring. Likewise, if you met an objectionable person, someone who was like, very important and very busy and very dismissive of the minion serving them, I would make sure that they were in a middle seat.
Yeah.
And, beside a smelly person or something, so, yeah.
Right by the toilet.
And you could also misdirect the baggage. And you absolutely could. And
so
it did happen because you just had the tags for each destination.
Right.
So you could put any tag on it. And yeah.
But, you may have unknowingly created relationships.
I hope so.
And children that may owe their lives to you.
Yeah.
You're playing God under Aer Lingus.
I know. Service to humanity.
Now, is this true? This is the last thing I want to ask you about Father Ted. Did you spend 6 months in a seminary researching your role? This is what it says. I think, again, IMDb, but it might be Wikipedia. Did you spend 6 months?
That is not true. I didn't spend an hour in a seminary, nor would I. No. That is simply untrue.
There's a quote of you saying that...
Does it really look like I did that much
I know
research?
what I was going to say. If you did, what was there's a quote of you saying that 90% of the people who were in the seminary were like Father Dougal. Is that just entirely... Is that you messing around?
Probably messing around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Good, that's all I want.
Mind you, I was mistaken for a priest on a few occasions.
Yes.
There was one... it was before the series was well known, so it would have been maybe during the filming of the first series. And I was wandering around in my priest costume around the shops at lunchtime. And I was in a shoe shop admiring the shoes. And a man came over to me, the salesman came over to me and he said, take whatever you want, Father. It's on the house.
Did you take it?
Lovely pair of documents.
All right, I want to talk... Well, actually, I was going to talk... This predates this. You were in a sketch group called Mr. Trellis.
Yes.
In 1990 at the Edinburgh Fringe.
That's right, yeah.
How was that?
With Barry Murphy and Kevin Gildee.
Oh, cool! Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, it was great. I mean, we that's how I started in this sketch group in Dublin. Really funny stuff. Barry wrote most of it. Things like we would play 3 synchronized swimmers doing impressions of famous movies. So it was basically the 3 of us with pegs on our nose. I can't remember the films like Gorillas in the Mist, and we'd sort of squint, and it was, you'd have to be there.
Mr. Trellis is kind of if that had turned out to be a big success, it's kind of a name that would have haunted you. I think Mr. Trellis is a kind of very sketch show name.
Yeah, it is really. I think the name, there is a character in one of the Flann O'Brien books in At Swim Two Birds called Dermot Trellis.
Okay.
I think that's probably where it came from, because that's probably the kind of thing we were reading at the time.
Okay.
But yeah, it is a very sketch group name. But we never fulfilled our potential. I mean, honestly, we weren't bad at all. And before, there was a real vogue for sketch groups in Edinburgh, where the sketch groups start winning Perriers and things like that. We were nearly there.
Yeah. It was very... I'd been
it was the League of Gentlemen who were the first.
Yeah. They were the late 90s. So I'd done student sketch shows in the late 80s, which was the worst possible time to do sketches, and the worst format and the worst place to be doing it. And people hated student sketch groups. And then we did a show in '91, I think, called The Dumb Show, with Steve Coogan, Patrick Marber, Stuart Lee, Simon Munnery, and me. Which again, nobody came. It was the year Steve won the Perrier for his other show, but no one came to see it at all, really. So it wasn't the sketch show's time.
It wasn't time.
We missed time on that.
Head of the curve.
But also Edinburgh related. You played Coconut Tam in Greyfriars Bobby.
Yes, a glittering career.
Who's a real character, right? Coconut Tam.
Coconut Tam was a real character in Victorian Edinburgh.
Right.
He well known. He had a hunch. He was big bushy beard. There are photographs of him.
Okay.
So this was the Adventures of Greyfriars Bobby. The Scottish folk tale.
I do know it.
It was a really good film. It was actually a really, really good film. I mean, Coconut Tam was only in it a little bit, but great cast again. Christopher Lee was in it.
Christopher Lee, yeah.
Yeah. I remember filming in a graveyard in Stirling, I think it was, -15. With the mist genuinely swirling around, it wasn't artificial mist, and Christopher Lee walking towards me. That was kind of exciting.
Because you were a comedy fan right before you were a comedian, and you've got to work. I mean, I know you like The Young Ones, and you got to work with Nigel Planer.
Nigel Planer
recently.
And Aid Edmondson.
Have you? Yes, both in Death
they
in Paradise.
both turned up in Death in Paradise, different
nice.
series. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
was the best thing about Death in Paradise was the guest cast. You never knew who was going to turn up.
What was bad about... I mean, I was telling you backstage, I've watched every single episode of Death in Paradise.
God, you're so unfashionable.
All the different, all the different incarnations.
Yeah.
They regenerate, like Doctor Who.
Yeah.
You all do it for about 2 years, and then you all get fed up and leave.
Yeah.
What's the true story? Because you go, I wanted to go back and do stand-up. It sounds like the best possible acting job in the world that you go to 6 months to the Caribbean to film. Why didn't you stay doing that job forever, Ardal?
I solved 20 murders.
Yeah.
That's more than enough for any person in their lifetime. It was just dangerous, frankly, out there.
Right.
No, I think all the various detectives would tell you that it's just very demanding. I mean, like, it sounds churlish to say that, but it's brilliant. It was brilliant, and it was life enhancing, and it was life changing in many ways. I mean, to live that lifestyle for 4 summers was incredible, and memorable, and every day was, like memorable in lots of ways. But it was just like demanding. Like, I can't describe to you just you don't sleep for 6 months. It's you've got frogs making noises. What does a frog make?
Chirrup?
No,
ribbit?
No, that's a bird. Croaking. And you've got crickets chirruping, and you have wild dogs savaging wild chickens, and you have fan whirring.
Did they not put you in a hotel? Were you in a tent again? Were you in your pea tent?
Yeah, I'm a very outdoorsy type. But it was just that kind of like constant. There was always something killing something else.
Yeah.
And it was just, and the heat was so excessive, and the humidity. Like, you were always wet. You were always like.
Well, you have to wear a suit and stuff, don't you, as the English
Yeah, you do.
character,
And like
the
between
British
takes,
character.
you would have to take off your clothes. Like, I'm talking every 15 minutes, you would have to strip down, and you would have to be dried by someone. Like, which was bad for me. It was worse for them. But I mean, I'm just like people find it hard. Like, guest actors love it because they come out for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And they lie on the ground, for a few hours every day, and then, they drink cocktails by the pool. So it's fantastic. It's like winning a competition for them.
The best thing you could do is be the person who gets murdered.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So you do one scene.
You have 1 day of filming, and you're there for 2 weeks. It's great.
Okay. But that's what I'm angling for. That's what.
Yeah.
I could be the next. Once Ralph Little gets fed up, he's not going to get fed up. Is he? He loves it.
He loves it.
He loves it out there.
Yeah. But no, there's an awful lot to love, and the lifestyle was great, and just to learn about the history of the place, and the horrific history of the place in lots of ways, and to really immerse yourself in this culture for months at a time. Mm-hmm. That's a rare privilege, and I wouldn't knock that side of it. But as an actor, you're in every scene as playing the lead detective. You're working 5-6 days a week, 12 hours a day. It's very, very demanding.
Mm-hmm. And it's the same show every week.
It's
the
same.
It's the exact same show every week.
It's the same script. It's exactly the same. It's someone falls off a balcony,
and there's always 4 people who could possibly do it.
Yeah, I know. I didn't even have to read the script, so I knew we did it.
If I was going to do a murder out there, I'd just shoot someone.
Yeah.
I'd shoot them, and then that'd be it. No, don't try any funny. Same with Jonathan Creek, which we might talk about next. Don't try any funny business. Then someone's going to work out.
Yeah.
How did this murder take place in this locked room? Yeah. Don't do that.
But I mean, you watch it, or so you say. What is the pleasure for you? Like, why?
I don't know. I genuinely love it. It's like it's very. I can understand why it's maybe got a slightly older audience, which I'm now, certainly part of. It's beautiful. It looks gorgeous. You can have it on in the background. You don't have to concentrate.
Yes.
Because
you can go for a little nap and come back, and I'll still be at that fucking blackboard.
The first person.
Basically saying it over and over again. Yeah.
It's not going to be the first person. I think it's very, and it's amazing. The casts are amazing, exactly because of that. Because it's. I remember, in fact, when Rebecca Front did it, was one of yours, wasn't it? And she's such an amazing actor.
She's just brilliant.
I was meant to be going round to her house for dinner. She said, "I can't do it. You can't come. I'm going to work on Death in Paradise." And I was cross for 2 reasons, and I haven't been invited back either. That's the thing with her.
Yeah,
it's going to go round. But it's a good show. It's a good show. You should go. Would you go back for?
I don't know. I mean, you never say never. I don't know. No, I don't. Well, I don't know.
I heard you were going to write a memoir about your time on there. Is that
I think
true?
I jokingly said that on a radio show, but I actually think I probably signed something in my contract saying I'm not allowed to talk about it for about 10 years. Okay. So I probably shouldn't even be talking about it now.
Okay.
I know. Look, it was absolutely great, but like, I really do want to write that memoir, but not for another 10 years.
Well, let's talk about you. Well, seeing we're talking about writing, you have just your second novel is coming out.
Yes, I write a novel every 20 years.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you did a novel in 1998. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, 20, a quarter of a century later, we've come out with it's called Brouhaha. Mm-hmm. It's really unexpected. When I didn't know what quite to expect, but it's this is going to sound rude now. I was going to go, it's unexpected because it's really brilliantly written.
Oh.
But
thank you.
It's sort of not. I mean, it's funny. There's
So you thought that like there was going to be just loads of like.
Like I was saying to you backstage that it's often I read someone's book and if it's a novel, if I know the person, I'm sort of reading it with them in mind. But within a chapter or two of this, I'd sort of forgotten that it was written by you. It's sort of it's not a comedy exactly, is it?
Who did you think wrote it then? Samuel
It felt like Raymond Chandler had written it or someone like that. It's a real proper gritty mystery crime sort of, and it's about it's observations of society. There's funny stuff in there, but it's not like an ostensibly a funny novel.
Yeah. I think it's kind of like blackly humorous.
Yeah.
I mean, it's set in the border region of Ireland, which would be characterised as a place where there's a very deadpan tone. There is that kind of black humour.
Yeah.
Because it's border territory. It's people are kind of quiet and you are careful about what to say, and so everything is kind of a nod and a wink and so I was definitely trying to capture some of that atmosphere that I grew up with. I come from that part of the world as well.
Well, it feels, it's a very light touch to it, I think, in terms of that it's not smashing you over the head with that, but you're getting the culture of the society and through it all. It's a very impressive novel, I have to say. It's really, really fantastic. So I would recommend. Haven't finished it yet. It's quite long. Yeah. But I will finish it, and that's the exciting thing. What made you want to? Well, you done this. Was it a young person's novel, the first novel, or was it?
Yeah, the first one was called Talk of the Town. Yeah. It was a sort of a coming of age story. Again, similar kind of humor. That kind of dark humor. The deadpan tone was probably there as well. But it was about a sort of a tortured young man who was trying to, figure out what to do with his life. This is slightly different. I mean, it's sort of on the surface. It's sort of a crimey, I guess, a kind of a murder mystery, as you say. But I think it has layers. Like I think it is an observation of small town piety. It's satirical in places. It's like English towns. People are keeping up appearances all the time. People kind of are kind of humble. They're very civil to each other, but there's this really dark undercurrent. Something that inspired me would have been something like Fargo. When I watched Fargo, the Coen Brothers movie, the first time, I thought that's really familiar to me. It's like I could identify with that. The humor, the tone, the gruesome violence. I remember as a kid, you go to these nightclubs and things, and you'd be just shocked by the violence. And then the next day, everyone was really meek and humble again and going about their business. So, that there was always that undercurrent. In small towns everywhere, all over the world, we had the extra little dimension in the border region where you had this kind of paramilitary thing in the background. Yeah. So then you had that kind of slight culture of fear and the omerta, So that just gives it a little bit of I think an extra dimension or whatever.
Yeah, I think it's
something else to be worried about.
Yeah, it's something that people in England and the mainland UK don't really know much about beyond the obvious stuff. So it is really interesting to get immersed in that world. Your dad was a politician, right? So you've kind of got personal experience of that the fears and the bomb scares and that sort of
Yeah,
stuff.
well, I mean, I had a really happy childhood, and that part of the world was safe, and I mean, it was relatively safe. But 10 miles away, it wasn't.
Right.
Just across the border, the other side. And so, as a kid, like you were just really aware. I watched the news avidly as a kid, and I read the papers. I used to run home from school in primary school to read the newspapers, and from cover to cover. I was just a really old-fashioned kid, and then you turn on the nightly news, and right throughout the 70s. And into the 80s, like it was literally carnage every night, a car bomb or people shot in their beds, and this was right across the border. These were people who looked like me, and I could really identify with. And my father was from that part of the world, so he would have known some of these people personally. And so you were always very touched by that. And I was always, like, from an early age, I was shocked that people could go on about their business while this was happening just down the road.
Yeah.
And so there was a touch of people putting their head in the sand about things like that. Yeah. But it doesn't really impinge that much on the book. Like,
no.
Yeah.
Yeah, was it something was it something you were always doing with the writing, or is it because you've done so much acting and comedy and stand-up, which is still writing?
Yeah.
So people don't realise necessarily. But was it something that you've been harbouring a wish to do all this time, or was it you just had? Did you just have time to do this suddenly, or was it something that's been working on?
Like, as you say, I mean, the starting point for a stand-up show is the writing, and so I don't think it's unusual for stand-ups to try their hand at long form writing, whether that's a film script or a TV script, or in this case a novel. My first novel, it was always something I wanted to do from an early age. Long before I discovered stand-up, I would have been writing. So I would have been doodling from an early age, like from the age of 12 or 13, writing little short stories, poems, as you do, which your goal was. And then, I remember I think it was after the first series of Father Ted, where I took 6 months off, at least 6 months off to write my first novel, because it was something I always wanted to do. It's what I thought I was going to do with my life.
Yeah.
But then, like so many people, you get seduced by stand-up, the immediacy of it all. The kind of, stand-up is pretty cool in a way as well, and you get to travel, and, and you get the instant gratification. So, I put off the novel for as long as possible. Plus, because we have this reverence for writers in Ireland as well, you kind of, you don't want to put yourself out there in that way either, so you'd be reluctant to start. But eventually I did, and I was hugely satisfied with the first novel. And then I tried to write a second one not long after that, and I failed miserably. I kind of stopped and started it too many times, and the tone went all over the place, and I never got to grips with it.
Right.
And that kind of set me back a long way in terms of writing. And so about 6 or 7 years ago, I again took 6 months off. I hired an office, and I wrote an outline for this novel. And I always wanted to sort of write it's not strictly speaking a genre novel, but I always wanted to sort of play with the tropes of crime fiction, because I love crime fiction. I always have done since I was a kid. And I had at the end of that what I thought was a fairly decent first draft. And then I kind of left it because I got the job in the Caribbean, Death in Paradise. So I didn't get back to it for 4 or 5 years. And then the pandemic happened. And I was kind of looking around for, something to do. And that was staring me in the face. And when I opened it up, I was really pleasantly surprised by how well developed it was at the time. And, I just kind of tore into it and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's, writing a stand-up show is one thing. There's a complexity to writing any book, I think, but a novel like this as well. And there's a lot of characters, and there's a lot of backstory.
Yeah, you have to keep a lot of detail in your head all the time. So it's a huge effort of concentration.
Yeah. It's extreme, looking at Richard Osman, you could take a quarter of Richard Osman. Would you be happy with a quarter?
Take 100th of Richard Osman. No, it's not really that type of. In fact, it was quite. Well, it's not really that funny, but when I was showing it to a few publishers at the time, the feedback I was getting from one or two was, "Could it be more like Richard Osman?"
Yeah. It's better. It's better than Richard. I love Richard Osman's books. It's really good. I recommend it. Brouhaha. Do read it. I'm going to ask you a new emergency question. Adrian Charles has a urinal in his bathroom at home. What is the most unexpected item in your house, or if you don't have anything, in any celebrity's house you've been in?
A piranha.
You got a piranha, or someone else does?
It's a dead piranha. I have.
You have a dead piranha?
Yeah. It smells.
Does it?
No. Oh God. It depends what you think is unusual. I mean,
it does, but that's Adrian Charles doesn't think it's unusual to have a urinal in his own house.
I think that's a pretty.
Think it's a good idea?
I think it's a good idea.
I don't think it's a good idea. I'm very much for men sitting down to wee.
Well, it's not so much that I just love a bit of porcelain.
Okay.
It's a nice object. It's a nice.
I'm not sure it is. It's covered in piss, right? It's not that nice. It's not that nice. Not that nice. It flushes, apparently.
Oh.
It can flush it.
As long as you don't have those horrible, discs, those kind of...
Yeah, little urinal cakes.
Yeah, is that what they're called?
The urinal cakes,
Oh, yeah, okay.
Should try one. Give
lurid yellow.
Yeah, try one. They're nice. They taste pretty.
Yeah.
Good. I'll ask you another emergency question. Oh. If all the art galleries and museums in the world said, "We love My Hero, it's our favourite show, and we'd like to give you one," or any of your work, then we'd like to give you one item from any museum or art gallery in the world, and you can take it home and have it. What would you like to have?
Oh. What would I like to have from any art gallery in the world?
Any art gallery or museum. It can be an artifact. It can be a painting. It can be a sculpture.
Oh. It could be a Picasso or anything.
It could be Picasso.
Could it?
Yeah, it could be anything that's in the museum.
I would probably take something like the Edward Munch work, The Scream, or something like that. The wallpaper on my phone is another Edvard Munch painting of people on a quay in a little port.
He should have put the Scream bloke in it, shouldn't it? That's what. If I'd been Edvard Munch, I'd have put that Scream bloke in everything.
Yeah.
That's what. That was his gimmick. He should have stuck with that. Whatever he's drawing, that bloke should have been in the corner somewhere. That was the successful one.
Or a Van Gogh.
Yeah. Which Van Gogh would you like?
Any of them.
Any of them. I'm not fussy. Good. Ardal, if you could go in like a caterpillar, go into a chrysalis, and you could come out as anything you wanted to be, anything. Right? It could be you with attributes, or it could be something else. It could be something that's not even an animal. What would you like to come out of? What would you like to change, and what would you come out as?
I would like to come out as water. What sort of a question is that?
It's a good question. What kind of an answer is that? Water. What would you do if you were some water?
I would be drank by somebody.
Is that what you want?
Yes.
Okay. We've learned a lot about you.
Become part of them.
Wow.
And then they'd piss me out, and I would end up somewhere else.
What if it's Adrian Charles and you end up in his? You're right. Could be a terrible, terrible thing. Like me, you presented Top of the Pops and yet have not yet gone to prison.
Yeah.
How did you feel presenting Top of the Pops? Was that a big deal?
Oh yeah, absolute highlight. Absolute highlight of my life. Absolutely. Yeah. It was just, I couldn't believe it actually. It was just great. I remember what I was wearing. I had a terrible haircut and I was wearing a blue velvet jacket. I thought, I'm on Top of the Pops. It's got to be blue velvet.
Was it just you presenting the whole episode?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. I remember who was on.
Anyone good?
Blur were on.
Oh, that's pretty good.
But I was cheeky because at the time, Blur were kind of name-checking this great American indie band, Pavement, all the time. Yeah. So I introduced them as Pavement. Oh, I mean Blur. And that was a bit bold.
Yeah.
And who else was on? The Orb.
Oh, that's all right.
Remember The Orb?
I do, yeah.
Yeah. Bush.
Yeah.
It was a good night. It was good.
Yeah. Very good.
Good
we had
lineup. And then there was
Scatman
me.
John and Robson and Jerome were on that. I think Polk did one. Cher did one of the ones I did. East 17. We were rude about East 17 to front of their stupid faces.
Yeah.
It's funny. So I sort of think I would like to have known I was going to be when I was at school. If the people had known that I was going to present Top of the Pops,
Did you track them down and write to them and tell them?
I would have been absolutely the last person. If you'd been at school with 1,000 people, you said name in order who you think will present Top of the Pops out of the people in this school.
Yeah.
I would have been, second last. I think.
But don't you think that would be true of a lot of comedians, actors, musicians? They were kind of. I think part of the problem was we were disregarded as children.
Maybe. I don't know. It's sort of so far. I was so uncool, and I'm still not that.
What's changed?
I'm still not that. Still not that interested in music. But it would just be so if Joanna Thompson knew that I was going to present something, she'd know. If you're listening, Joanna. Oh no, sorry, I'm married now.
Yeah. I remember there was. So there's a great show in Ireland called The Late Late Show. It's probably the longest running chat show in the world, or that's how it sells itself. And when we were kids, it's the equivalent of being knighted in this country, getting on The Late Late Show. And I just won that Hackney Empire New Act of the Year competition. And I was invited on to do 5 minutes of stand-up on The Late Late. So this was the biggest day of my life at that point in terms of career. And this was my chance to prove to Joanna Thompsons of this world, how wrong they were about me. And all the people at home who didn't believe in me or just couldn't believe that he's a comedian. What? And the night I was on, kind of just my luck in a way, the main topic for discussion that night was murder. So what you had the relatives of people who had been butchered. There's no other way of putting it. Butchered in quite a spectacular fashion. And these were all high-profile stories in Ireland at the time. And so I go on there and I start doing. I used to have this routine about how sheep get a lot heavy when they're wet. When they, but how so they'd gone on for an hour telling their stories, and the whole nation was crying. The studio audience was crying. The host, a guy called Gay Byrne, legendary host, brushes a tear away from his eye and says, "Now after all that, I think we all need a bit of a laugh." And he introduced me and I did my sheep stuff. And everyone's just looking at me going...
My audience will be very excited to have you here because you were on Doctor Who playing a cat trapped on a motorway. Mm-hmm. Have I got that right?
You have, yes.
Okay.
Thank you. And a bloody good episode it was too. Russell Davis, it was one of his episodes that he wrote, and it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Really uplifting story. I was a cat creature. Took 5-6 hours to get into the cat costume.
Yeah.
And I remember they had to glue my face with 2 types of industrial glue to keep it on for the day. And I was wearing contact lenses, and they popped out because I was so stretched that they literally, like in a cartoon, just my... both lenses went boing, boing. But it was fantastic. David Tennant era.
Okay. It's been referred to, I think, in other episodes. It is it doesn't look like you, does it? Because it's a cat.
It is a cat. It sounds like me, though.
Yeah.
And there is a model of my character.
Is there?
Brannigan the cat, yeah. Okay. It's so cool. I mean, oh, yeah. And I was only in it for about 5 minutes.
Okay. You're married to a human woman.
Yes, but we have cat children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good.
And there was one of the other things I remember about it. I remember it being a really great episode, but there is a very uplifting hymn at the end, the old rugged cross, which I think is a Welsh hymn.
Yeah.
And so all the characters in it, and there was a huge range of characters in it, all trapped in this traffic jam on a motorway, like maybe a 20-lane motorway. So everyone sings. So the end is this rendition of the old rugged cross. But we all went in to record it individually after the event. And I can't sing. And it was so embarrassing. I was singing the old rugged cross, and the 2 studio engineers were under the desk laughing their holes off. That's my memory of Doctor Who.
And my hero was, again, costume-wise, was quite demanding, wasn't it? You're kind of put in these situations, like you had to wear a visor or something that you couldn't see through. And you had to change in and out of the costume a lot, is what I read, that it was quite difficult to change in and out of the costume.
Well, there was a thong involved, which
Okay.
had to be surgically removed at the end of a night. No, it was. Well, I had a costume made out of. They weren't my real muscles. Okay.
Oh, really not? Okay.
You just wanted me to come clean about that. Okay. No, it wasn't. No, it was. That was a very enjoyable show to do. BBC primetime sitcom.
Yeah.
We did 5 series of that.
And then it went on and did more series. You changed over to James.
They did
Davis.
one more after I left.
More,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it wasn't as good. It wasn't as good as you had. Not like Ralph Little. Ralph Little's really made that part.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I can't agree more.
Was it like a dip? Was that? It was obviously like quite a little way away from Father Ted. Was it a sort of? Were you getting offered the similar sort of roles to Father Ted at that point?
Not really. I mean, for a long time, I was like any. It's not that I was offered a huge amount of roles or anything, but I mean, any roles I was offered after Father Ted and My Hero, and kind of one thing leads to another, and you end up doing similar types of roles.
Yeah.
So I made a big effort at one stage to do theatre. I'd never done theatre growing up or in my 20s, and then, I just really was curious about theatre, and in theatre, you do get a little bit more scope, or people will take a chance on you more, to do something a bit different. So I did 3 or 4 plays over a period of about 5 or 6 years, and I really, really enjoyed it, and I was able to sort of, I think finally call myself an actor. It wasn't until I did that. I think you have to overcome certain things when you're known purely as a sitcom actor. Mm-hmm. It's hard to go to the next level, I think.
Yeah.
And I was always curious as to what else was out there. So I think doing plays for me was great, and I think since then people have been looking at me in slightly different ways, and
You've sort of done everything. It's that's what's you've always worked, and you've tried different things and been successful at all the things. So it's it's an ideal career, really, isn't it? And you're constantly working, pretty much.
Yeah.
Are you gonna do more stand up?
Yeah, I still really enjoy. The last stand up I did was Friday night. Lovely little gig in a seaside town in Ireland, and in a disused church or a deconsecrated church. And it was absolutely beautiful. I mean, I really do love stand-up as much as ever now, I would say. I toured right up to March 2020 until the world shut down. And since then, I've done a few Zoom gigs and a few little gigs here and there. But I really do love it. I mean, I think it does help not to be doing it all the time, and then only to do it when you really want to do it, and you kind of treasure those moments on stage.
Yeah, it's interesting the way the way you might have just been a stand-up. You might have moved. The way things just happen and move about, and it's kind of that would have been fantastic as well. But with you, it just seems there's so many opportunities, films and theatre and TV. It's
well, I mean, it's a kind of a combination of like drifting from one thing to another. What materializes and kind of going in that direction, and occasionally then just giving yourself a jolt and trying something a bit different.
Yeah.
And taking a chance. Like I'm very nervous about my novel coming out. Like it's kind of nerve-wracking to have that out there because you don't know how people are going to judge it.
No.
But you gotta take a chance. You only get one shot at these things, and
Did I read somewhere you say you kind of wanted to do? You want to do everything if you can with life. That like you sort of see life as being this. If you could try everything, you would.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Just do have as many different experiences as possible.
Yeah. Because we're getting older, aren't we? That's what we were talking about backstage. Yeah. I think you sort of realise there's a limited amount of time left. There's a limited amount of, which when you're only 30 or 20, you don't even really think about.
Yeah, it concentrates the mind, all right. Yeah.
And lockdown did that.
I think the pandemic did that absolutely for loads of people. Yeah,
And so, what are you just going to try and keep doing everything? Do you want to move into writing, or do you want to carry on? I know you're filming something at the moment, so you're doing more acting.
Yeah. So it's trying to keep the plates spinning.
Yeah.
I mean, that's I love the acting. I'd love to do more of that, more of the straight acting. Working with great people. you know, and I mean, part of the attraction is not quite knowing what's next. But I also love writing, love stand up as well. So you know, it's trying to keep it all going. I mean, sometimes it sounds when you're in an environment like this, where you're talking about your career, it sounds like you're doing an awful lot. But like, I have a lot of downtime.
Well, look, it's been really lovely to see you again and have you on. Do buy Ardal's book. You won't regret it. It's called Brouhaha. It's very exciting. I can't wait to find out what happens.
I'll tell you after.
Oh, tell me after. It's
Save
really
you the
good.
bother.
It's really genuinely brilliant. And thank you so much for coming on and do the podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, the amazing Ardal O'Hanlon. Thank you. You have been listening to RHLSTP with me, Richard Herring, and my guest, Ardal O'Hanlon. Thank you to Scant Regard, who play the music for these credits and do nothing else. I'm indebted to my producer, Ben Walker. I'm indebted to Chris Evans, not that one. Thank you to everyone at the Leicester Square Theatre, of course, for their fantastic help, and all of the Sky Potato crew as well. I'm also indebted to our Kickstarter backers, who are, I'll put my glasses on, Phil Shoebridge, Mark R., that Chris Evans, yeah, that one, Moira Tullock, Dr. Nathan Flood, Rich John, Simon Average Audience Member Masterton, Finton Demodi, Alistair Cross, Rob Baird, James Barter, Dave McCarroll, Liam, my apprentice stalker, Andrew Dolphin, Lucy Rainsford, Freddie Rayfield, Michael Sophie and Alice Sage, John J.T. Taylor, more like John I.T. Taylor, am I right, kids? Daniel Smith, Tamsin Porter, Knut Ola Nastridstrom, Ian the Main Man, Adrian Demican, or Adrian Domican, I always get it wrong, it's one of those two, in memory of the late, great Andy Burr, Kate McKeegan, Raina Simpson, Stuart of Shrewsbury, latterly Hastings Burrows, David Gilmartin, Hector Maroon, Steve Lowe, Ian Thompson, Christine Francescani, Spangle Cock Bobblehead, Donald Fallon, Phil Moss Harmonica Boss. And this is a Sky Potato Fuzz and GoFasterStripe.com production. Head to richardherring.com/gigs to find out when RHLSTP is coming to a venue near you. We are back at the Edinburgh Fringe, and we'll be back at the Leicester Square Theatre in September, October and November. richardherring.com/gigs, richardherring.com/RHLSTP/tour for all guest info and links. Thank you.